Okay, looks like everyone is in place. Let's slightly start. I almost, I just almost said good morning because I get used to that. We are hosting these Twitter spaces Thursday mornings, but right now it is a morning in Australia, and a little bit later I will tell you why. So, welcome everyone to today's AMA session. My name is Anastasia. I am Chief Marketing Officer of Matchain, and I will be your moderator for this exciting event. But not only me. We have here Ian Gertler. He is Chief Marketing Officer of Blubird, and he will join me as our co-host and will help me to co-moderate this perfect, amazing discussion. So, we are here thrilled to have you all as we dive into an engaging discussion about the innovative project, Bluebird and Matchain. We recently made a partnership together and we are excited to tell the whole world about it. And let me introduce our esteemed speakers. So, I already mentioned Ian. Also, we have here Corey, the founder and CEO of a Bluebird. So, the king is here. So who has been a driving force in shaping the vision and mission of Bluebird. So he will tell everything about it. Well, at least what can be public. And joining us as well, our very own Jessie Xiao, our Chief Commercial Officer at Matchain, who brings a wealth of knowledge and insight into our project. And today, as being said, we will explore in various aspects of both Bluebird and Matchain, discussing what sets our projects apart, the unique challenges we are addressing, and how our partnership aims to create new opportunities within the whole blockchain system. So we will try to make fun, right, guys? So and for the rest of everyone who is here, we encourage you to actively participate, ask questions. So you have a public chat here. If you have any questions to all our speakers, please, you are very welcome to ask them. In the very end, like 10 last minutes, you can raise your hand and ask questions directly to the speakers. So please don't be shy. We are all friends. We are all framing industry, and let's go for it. Ian, as my co-host, I'm so proud to have you here. Please raise your voice. Tell us something.
Well, thank you very much, Anastasia. It's a pleasure to be here with Corey, Jessie, and you to talk about, you know, Matchain, Bluebird, the visions and reasons they exist, but also to really talk about something important, which is why is this happening now? What is the importance of Web3? And what are the opportunities and certainly what are the challenges? Because technology is amazing, but it is always challenging. And that's why we have, you know, teams like Match and Bluebird here, especially with Corey and Jessie, to tell us what's important and how do we make things happen the right way. So, pleasure to be here.
So, as Ian decided to go deeply inside the blockchain trilemma and everything around it, without further ado, I would let our speakers to introduce themselves and maybe to tell a bit about the journey behind the scenes. So, like why you came to blockchain, why you decided to be a part of this amazing community, and why you are so excited to build projects within the blockchain ecosystem. And I am very excited to ask Corey about that. Corey, hello, good morning there. Very welcome. We are like, it's a pleasure to have you here. Could you please tell us what the Bluebird is? Who are you and how you came to blockchain space? Which projects you already made? Maybe we know them all and you are a superstar.
No worries. Well, thank you for the welcome, and it's good to be here. Love doing these spaces with our partners. It's always a pleasure. So a bit about me. I've been in the blockchain space since early 2017. Fell down the rabbit hole as a lot of people did at that point. I think that was probably one of the largest influx of fresh blood into the blockchain space in those earlier days. And I just fell in love with the technology. It wasn't so much about, I mean, there was a lot of hype back then on certain things. Very small circles were running. Everyone kind of knew everybody at that point. But, the dreams were there of a better world leveraging this technology. And that's something I can get behind. So done a lot of research, a solid 6 months or so of deep diving into all of what's possible with Web3. And, I fell in love with it. So I started up one of my marketing companies at that point. And that was mainly just because I found there was a lot of issues that founders were having on the marketing side of things. And I wanted to help solve a few problems for these founders as well. I've got a very much a entrepreneurial spirit. So, that in me was kind of urging me to solve these problems. So with our marketing company, basically that led us to work very, very closely with a lot of projects. To this date, in the last almost 7 years or so, we've helped launch well over 100 projects, some of which quite intimately on their launch teams, others more so just tertiary type support on the outskirts of their projects, but very much still behind the scenes. So that kind of showed me a lot of problems that these founders were also still having outside of solid marketing services. These problems were with, low quality smart contract developers, or, maybe they were having problems with their, their tokenomics, their spreadsheets that would be managing their cap table. Very seemingly simple things they were having a lot of issues with, and the data sets that they were building out, but very important data sets that would be the lifeblood of their project, very underutilized. So that's kind of that side of where I seen all of those issues. About 4 years ago, I also co-founded Andromeda Capital. We're a very, very active fund, a family fund, 30 million AUM, chain agnostic, vertical agnostic. We don't discriminate against any type of project as long as it's got a solid idea and foundation. So on the investment side, we're also very active. This year alone, I believe we've deployed in well over 200 projects. So we see the issues from the investor side as well. The mismanagement of data, the constant having to do KYC over and over again, always having to, pitch the value add of why we're investing, why they should choose us to come onto their cap table. And it's quite frankly a waste of time, and it's antiquated. There's no need for it. You see a lot of Google Sheets or Google Forms, going around, pledge forms for investments that you might see circulating in private groups. And that's purely because that's the best way that projects have right now to try and raise funds. They don't have any kind of, centralized way of, and I know I said a sin word there, centralized, talking about blockchain here, but there's got to be a synergy of both. But the founders, they don't have access to quality investors a lot of the times, and that can undo a project, unfortunately, as well. Sometimes you might see the best idea in the world, you might invest in that project and it might fail, and you'll be scratching your head as to why does it fail? Why does no one care about it? And sometimes it can be chalked up to bad founders. That's true. But other times, it can be chalked up to the fact that their cap table is very underleveraged. They don't know how to deal with their influences that they have on board. They don't know how to deal with, their investors' networks and take advantage of those networks to get their, projects out there, essentially. And, so they end up kind of just fading away, which is very unfortunate for, good quality technology-based projects. They'll fade away from the public light, And yeah, they'll still run as a business, but they won't be getting the recognition that they deserve. So we've seen it from both angles. And Anastasia, forgive me, I'm just going to quickly duck into what Blubird is and how that ties into my experience here. So essentially, Blubird, it's an enterprise SaaS platform, and it is focused on streamlining the the tokenization of assets and equity management. So that's on the founder side, and for the investor side, it's mainly streamlining the deal flow and investment management aspect of it. So just making it so it's a really interesting and fun experience for both parties, because let's face it, the admin side of that stuff can be very boring, and not the most fun task to take under. So essentially, we're solving all the problems that I had faced on both sides, working with and amongst projects on the launch process and the investment side. I won't go too much deeper just yet. I'll wait to go until we're a bit deeper into the conversation. But yeah, Jessie, over to you.
Thanks, Corey. Similar to you, I also just fell into the rabbit hole, and that's how I got into crypto. So I'm the chief commercial officer of Matchain. My background comes from traditional finance. I previously was a private equity analyst at Macquarie Asset Management. And then I moved over to government affairs and climbed up the ranks to becoming a government affairs executive at Macquarie. So I was basically doing public-private partnerships and relationship management with all the governors, mayors, the DOT, DOE, and the White House on behalf of Macquarie. And while I was still at Macquarie, I really wanted to do something in the crypto space. I've been following and investing personally in Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana back in college, really. So I went to school in Boston, and a couple kids started mining Bitcoin in the dorm rooms. And I remember one day all of us received this letter saying, like, whatever you're doing, please stop. The electricity bills are being hiked up in our dorms. And I remember thinking, what the heck is going on? So I tracked down the students in my dorm room and asked them, like, what are you doing? How are you making so much money? Um, Unfortunately, I never bought computers, and I never got into the mining part, but I did just start investing from an early age, and to this day I have no regrets. It was a bumpy road, but we're still here. But in 2020, 2021, I moved to New York, and I saw that there's a couple of crypto events here and there within the city. So I went to them, and I got a little offended, not gonna lie, going to these events and realizing that I was one of maybe like two girls in the room. And people back in the day would ask me, like, do you know what an NFT is? Or like, you're who are you here as a plus one with? And I was like, no, 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 like I came here on my own. Like I really like crypto, and I just wanted to see if I can make in real life friends apart from the internet friends I've been talking to over Discord. And that inspired me to start something called BubbleDAO. BubbleDAO is a 501c3 nonprofit focused on bringing in more women and minorities into the Web3 space. And I started hosting workshops where women would bring their laptops, and I would teach them how to mint your own NFT, how to read a smart contract. And I threw a lot of mixers and just crypto parties throughout New York. And that's really how I started building out my crypto network. I had been trying to find a good crypto company that I really believed in and was willing to jump full time into. And that became Matchain. In October, November this past year, I received a call from Petrix, our CEO, and he was like, you should, I want you to join my team. You're very strong at relationship management skills, at business development, forming partnerships. just come to Matchain and I'll show you what it is. And after learning more and more about the vision, what they're trying to build, I completely got sold and quit my job at Macquarie. And here I am now at Matchain. We are building something that actually blows my mind to this day. So, how we frame ourselves is we call ourselves a decentralized identity layer. And what that means is we built a layer one blockchain that's fully interoperable, EVM compatible, and move compatible, with the purpose of serving a DID solution. DID stands for Decentralized Identifier, and we built out a DID SDK that we're able to integrate into other projects. And their users can create just one ID. This one ID acts as like a universal passport where you're able to bind multiple wallets into it. It's a very easy, seamless sign-on process where you create it using your Gmail. You can link your Twitter, Telegram, social media accounts. And if you don't have a wallet, that's okay. We'll automatically create you one. But once you create this ID, it comes with a user dashboard where you're able to track and access all of your Web3 wallets and information in one place and use this ID across any dApp, across any chain. So that's what's so powerful about this whole about everything that Matchain is building. We're bringing control back into the user's hands. Whereas if you think about the Web 2 space, you have Google, Amazon, Facebook, they're all taking so much of our data and they're doing stuff with it that you don't really know. You know, we see the long terms and conditions contract, but nobody reads that. And each of these companies are taking different parts of your data too. So now in the Web3 space, this is the chance for us to turn the entire ownership back into the hands of the users. I really want to see a world where we are recreating the internet so that users get to decide, pick and choose which parts of their data they want to share or how much of their data they want to provide. And yeah, that's honestly the beauty of the decentralized world. And I'm really glad that we're partnered up with Blubird because Blubird is helping us with building out this mission. You know, currently, Matchain, we're still young, so we're still fundraising, and Blubird provides us with all these tools and platforms for us to better facilitate with our launch, with our fundraising, and yeah, I'm really excited to be speaking on this space today with Corey, Ian, and the whole team.
Thank you so much, Jessie. And we started to speak about mass adoption at some kind of point. And I think that Ian has a brilliant rhetorical question. He asked me like 2 days ago, and I want all of us to think about this all together because I think it's just curious to talk about it.
Thank you, Anna. So, Jessie and Corey, I'm curious, and I think you'll probably want to answer this maybe back and forth a little bit together, but we're seeing the need to transition from the Web 2 models we had before to what's evolving into Web 3. Why do you think this is so important? And I know some of what you each said just now touch on it, but why is it so important? What kind of opportunities does it create? But even more important, what kind of challenges do you see that the collaboration between Blubird and Match, as well as individually, are doing to address that?
Absolutely. I'll take it, Jessie, for the first part. So, I mean, from our side, at least on the Blubird end, a lot of the Web2 companies, they are striving to open up new markets, essentially. There's a lot of stagnation in Web2. There's, the growth all you've got to do is look at the stock market. I mean, there's a lot of stagnation on that side, and it's not just about making money, although I just mentioned that side of it, but it's the stagnation of communities. So essentially in Web3, it's built around communities. It's not built around a product and adverts, and the user is the product at that point, for traditional sense, which is pretty antiquated, and it doesn't work long term because things fall out of favor essentially. However, when you can build a community, and some brands have done this really well. A lot of the franchises, like Star Wars and such, they've built themselves communities, but the communities built themselves. The company didn't actually do it. So Web3 kind of empowers founders to then build their own communities around their own, whatever it is that they're offering, which has a lot more impact than I think what most people realize. So that's probably one of the bigger ones. And then, there's the technology side of things. Web 2 are starting to take advantage of the fact that a lot of the stuff that we do in Web 3 is immutable. So, it's one of the largest pain points for a lot of sectors. You have a lot of double spend issues in Web 2. It might not be on the finance side, but it's definitely on the asset side, the asset managers, brokers, a lot of the RWA stuff. They deal with a lot of double spend issues because they don't have any kind of, trustless way to interact with any systems that is a single source of truth. They don't have an oracle sitting between two databases, for example, that might be in existence. It's mainly all about phone calls at this point, which sounds very antiquated. And I was actually quite shocked when I found this out. It's especially with, a lot of the larger asset classes. For example, carbon credits is a prime example of this. You'll have banks that buy $200 million at a time worth of carbon credits. A lot of people say that they're very illiquid. They're only illiquid until you start looking at how much these corporations spend each year. Sometimes it's in the billions of dollars. So how that happens, you'd think that there would be a neat little login for these companies. They'd go in, they would select how much they want to purchase, and they would do a wire transfer. If only it were that simple. No, it's a phone call to a broker. The broker has to ring up and have a chat to the issuer. The issuer has to go through the database. They don't earmark that it's potentially sold. They just say that it's available. That broker then goes back to the bank, says, yes, we have some that's available. Would you like to purchase? And this whole process can take days. Meanwhile, there's another purchaser who's doing the exact same thing, but on a slightly different time scale. And before you know it, an asset's been double sold. It could be a different broker, and different, a different team member at the issuer, on the issuance side, and the asset gets double sold. So it's a huge problem, because you can't undo that. You can't just say to a bank, sorry, your $200 million is invalid. They have to find a solution at that point for these, companies that are purchasing. So they don't want to annoy their clients. As you can imagine, it's a lot of money. So when it comes to Web3, they can no longer double spend. So that in itself reduces a lot of headaches. It opens up the possibility for a self-serve framework so that these companies, that they can come in and purchase themselves, or a broker portal, right, that can go in and, in a single source of truth environment, see what's available and make it happen. Basically, it's still available until that transaction clears. As soon as it clears, it's unavailable. Settlement layers can be very quick. And, so that's just one aspect and issue that it can solve, and why Web 2 is really keenly looking at Web 3. Jessie, over to you.
I completely agree with what you said, Corey. I mean, building off of your example, so when I worked at Macquarie, I was focused on infrastructure private equity. Macquarie is one of the largest infrastructure asset managers in the world, and they actually own the largest portfolio of ports in the United States. And when I was digging deeper into how these ports worked, the logistics and operations behind them, you'd be surprised at how manual everything is. They literally manually track and tag every container. That is so susceptible to human error. And I kept thinking to myself, like, we have such advanced technology now. Look at the blockchain. Being able to tie the supply chain to the blockchain, that literally already eliminates so much of the time and effort it takes to try to, track each of your goods. And I know that the supply chain is a very typical example, but it does demonstrate that shift from Web 2 to Web 3 that is needed. Um, I do have to say, though, a huge challenge right now that the Web3 space is facing that Web2 did really well is the onboarding of users. Web3 is still a little bit cumbersome when it comes to the UX, UI. Users have to figure out how to download a wallet, how to, buy some crypto on a centralized exchange, and then go to a dApp and figure it out. Like DeFi right now is doing so much in terms of innovation, but I don't see enough of my friends and my family taking advantage of all these new ways where people are able to democratize and make money. So I really wish that we could keep promoting and advocating for crypto and blockchain uses. It is a little bit of a fine line because a lot of the traditional folks, when they think of blockchain, when they think of crypto, the word crypto, they immediately think of, the Silk Road, which isn't great. But I feel like every single industry starts off with something that puts it on the map. Whether that's good or bad, at least, hey, now people know about crypto and we're on the map. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
So
Ian.
I was just going to say what you both said, it kind of illustrates a very important thing. Innovation and technology are ingrained in our daily lives in society, you know, from a lot of people, not everyone yet, hopefully soon, but it really is touching all facets of business and life. So the important element here is that it can't be innovation alone. It needs to be innovation plus people. And, a famous quote by Alan Kay, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. I think everything you guys just said lives up to that. So back to you, Anna.
Thank you so much. No, I was thrilled to listen to all your opinions, guys. It's so exciting. And as Jessie said, like, okay, we are on the map. And what role do you think partnerships like the one between Bluebird and us, Matchain, will play in the industry? So maybe, Jessie, you can highlight it a bit.
Yeah, of course. So here's the thing. So right now, everyone is trying to build so much at such a fast pace, and we can't build it alone. That's why these partnerships are so important because Bluebird, for example, provides us with the infrastructure for us to figure out how to run our operations more efficiently internally. And that allows us and frees up time for us to be able to go out and continue to build our vision and focus on our technology. So these simple partnerships, I know they seem like, just announcements on Twitter and you always see them just on your Twitter feed, but it is very important to see that we're all collaborating together. Um, I think back to the internet boom in the 1990s, early 2000s, and how a lot of these conglomerates, they didn't just start off being great already. They actually had to work together too. I mean, hopefully we're building it in a more decentralized manner than what we did in the 90s, but it still matters because we are still working together and collaborating throughout the industry as a whole. We're not just siloed and building on our own focused products, but we're actually leveraging each other and providing tools to each other so that we can all grow.
Amazing. So, how can community members get involved with both Blubird and Matchain? Corey, maybe you can tell us, like, what would be the next step?
Yeah, definitely. So we have our MVP of our investor portal live at this point. So you can go over to our website, getbluebird.com, and which you can find through our Twitter handle there. And you can start that registration process if that's something that interests you. If you're a founder, feel free to reach out to myself or one of our team members, and we're happy to add you to our pilot program. And if you're interested in partnering with us as well, please again reach out to some of our team members or myself. More than happy to discuss the integration side of things. And we'll take it from there basically.
Super cool. Ian, when we spoke several times during these days, we spoke how this crypto space has been changed a lot and how many challenges we faced to become who we are here and now, present. So, do you think that there are a lot of challenges behind the scenes before we will go to the second question to our speakers?
I think there's always going to be challenges when you're trying to innovate, you're creating new things, you're essentially looking at the state of things and then figuring out, well, how do we make it better? And if we can't make it better, how do we come up with something different? And a big part of that I think um, Jessie touched on was even something like the supply chain, or what Corey touched on with carbon credits and the process. There's so much error when people do these very monotonous, repetitive tasks. And so you could fix that. But the other side of the fence is if you don't do things right, there's always an issue of security. So cybersecurity, so many places over the years, this isn't just Web3, this is from the early days of technology, from the mid, 1900s, 1970s, 80s, and beyond. You know, security was almost looked at as an add-on or an afterthought. It needs to be foundational. It needs to be built in. So, I guess we could go back to Corey and Jessie about, what do you think about privacy and security, and how do we make sure those always remain top priorities?
So privacy and security is a huge, huge topic at Matchain because it is fundamental to our Match ID, the DID solution I was talking about. Because we are handling users, like we're giving users the control over their own digital footprints and their digital identities. We really want to make sure that we are protecting it from being hacked or from other cybersecurity threats. And what we're doing is we're using zero knowledge proofs and homomorphic encryption in order to make sure that these IDs are safe and secure. A couple months ago, my mom, her ID got stolen. Like someone ended up taking her identity. She had to go to the police station, like file that her driver's license has been like copied and used, and it was a whole ordeal because she had to file with the police, the credit score system, like all of these different entities just to make sure she regained back her identity. And that's something that I want to avoid in the Web3 space because we fundamentally believe that, human identity, digital identity, that should all be a human right. And in order do that, we're leveraging as much of the existing technologies as we can. And as zero knowledge, as homomorphic encryption continues to advance, we're dedicated to continuing to implement them and advance with them.
Terrific. Corey, any thoughts?
Yeah, so I'll kind of touch on, since we're talking about the KYC side, I may as well touch on our side of what we do, with KYC, because with investors and projects, it's, a key component for that, right? You generally cannot invest in a project unless you provide the founders with some KYC documents. Now, some projects, they do it through a third party, which is usually fairly safe, depending on who the provider is. But a lot of the times, and many of our investments, founders do self KYC on their investors. So they just ask for the documents, they'll verify it, which is completely legal, mind you. This is nothing illegal for a project to do. However, data security, it's not the best. These projects, they leak like a sieve when it comes to data integrity. So, your documents are going to be stored somewhere, most of the time on a Google Drive, and goodness knows who has access to that. You don't know if they have some rather, maybe not as morally inclined staff members who find an opportunity to sell these documents because they are worth money. So at least with our system and the investor portal side of things, not only do you just do KYC once, it's through one of our partners, which is SumSub, one of the largest global KYC providers. And what that means is that projects, they don't see ever any data on you, the investor. All they see is that you have either passed or have not passed KYC. If you haven't passed, you would then just contact us. We'd sort it out through SumSub and get you either passed or let you know why you failed. So that data integrity is, it stays with a regulatory compliance company such as SumSub, which is very large, to the point where eventually we're going to turn off our own access. They have a system installed there that us as users of their software, we can turn off our own access to sensitive data, so we can only see very base level stuff. And to further protect people's identities, is that then even if we have some kind of leak on our side, they can't access anything in any detail. Like the documents, they can't get the documents. Very basic name data is all they would ever have access to, and that's as far as it goes. So yes, it would make an appeal process a little bit longer, but I think we've also gotten a little bit too comfortable giving up, a few of the securities in lieu of convenience. So I would like to kind of give back some security to those sorts of things at the expense of maybe an extra day to get something rectified if there is an issue. So that's my thoughts on that anyway, Ian.
That's terrific. And it's funny, for a long time now, I've joked that it's about KYC, know your customers, and KYCs, keep your customers safe. So, so back to you, Anna, on the next question.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ian, for your comments. I'm curious, with everything what being said, what are the long-term visions for Blubird and Matchain? Together as a powerful partnership, and collaboration, and as like a single project separated. So, just curious, how do you see our partnership is going through the years, and how do you see your project changing and shaping through over the time?
Definitely. So two aspects on our side, at least. First aspect is I would love to be exploring, as you know, the integration of your DID system. So that's going to be fun to explore, to see how that could work for investors and, compliance on that side of things. On the project side of things, that's where it gets, in my opinion, I can kind of nerd out on this and it gets really fun. So essentially, because of the unique data sets that we work with the projects, we can essentially recommend deployment chains to these projects based upon what sort of project they are, the data that they've filled out about themselves, things like that. So when it comes to Matchain, for example, if they are I don't know, let's just say a gaming project, or the ideal type of project to deploy onto Matchain. We can fill that criteria as they're going through the setup process through our ecosystem. And essentially, when it comes time to go do their deployment, or even before then for that matter, we could be recommending a chain suggestion, the pros and cons for using this specific suggestion. And the aim and the hope there is that it's going to help really holistically grow not only Matchain's ecosystems, but other chains as well, by pairing up the correct type of project to be deploying on each of these types of chains.
Thank you, Corey. And you're also helping make my job easier. Yeah, with Matchain, we're already growing at such a fast pace. To be honest, when we built Matchain, we incubated a social app called Intuverse. And Intuverse blew up across Asia, Southeast Asia, where users are already able to create a match ID within the Intuverse app. And now we already see there's like over 900,000 users who have created an ID. And we're working very hard on the back end to make sure that these IDs are deployed properly, are kept private and safe, and are able to have a utility. And that's why growing the Match ecosystem is really important, because we envision users to be able to use the ID as a single sign-on and be able to use it across any dApp that we display in the Match Hub. So what Corey was saying, where he's helping deploy projects based on the most fitting chain, that's really important for us, because we're looking for gaming projects, social, DeFi. So if you are a builder and you're interested in joining the Match ecosystem, please feel free to reach out to us or slide into our DMs. We're very active and constantly checking our socials. But the long-term vision for Matchain actually extends beyond just user privacy and self-sovereign identity. What we are envisioning is a world where we're able to pay back the users for consenting to sharing their data or using our IDs. So what I mean by that is each time a user goes on a gaming dApp, for example, and the game requests for information, whether it's verify that you're over 18, you can verify it easily. Luckily, we do have zero knowledge proofs that, like I talked about earlier, so you're able to verify that. But if they're trying to also track your behavioral data, you must provide consent to sharing that. And as we start accumulating all of this data, we want to make sure that we are paying the users back and in a fair manner, so that they are being compensated and their data isn't just, being used by Facebook and being sold to a third party, but rather they're actually getting paid and getting a cut of whatever the data is used for. This also ties back to our security and privacy question, because we're very keen on making sure that we match chain ourselves, just like Corey, just like what Blubird is doing. We don't actually see any of the private information stored in your ID, but we're able to collect the generalized behavioral and activity data without knowing, your personal information, your name, or anything like that. So this whole economy becomes a data a decentralized data commercialization economy, where like users are actually getting a chance to benefit from the dApps that they're going on, from the activity that they're doing on chain, and hopefully one day off chain as well. So that's really the long-term vision of Matchain. We really want to empower users, not just through their digital identity, but also empower them by giving them, a fair cut of what they're doing on chain.
Thank you, Jessie. And usually I like to ask people how they do think the space will develop in the next year till the end by the year. So if we can take out our crystal ball, we are all obsessed with some kind of a trend and we are observing something. If you can highlight something and you can try to predict, of course, it's not in investment advice, right? But still, if you can give this advice for someone who just joins the space and trying to be curious and educate themselves, maybe you can give an advice to like where to put attention, what is worth to take a look for, where to go to be educated, and the most important, how can we stay updated on the latest developments and announcements from your projects? Corey?
Yeah, definitely. So I won't go too far into the speculative nature of things, but I will say to keep a close eye on Chainlink and what they're doing. Amazing things over there, and they don't show any signs of slowing down. That's for sure. But one industry thing that I have noticed that I can attest to as well, because we are actually a part of this, and that is the amalgamation of processes and products. What we saw earlier, like even just going back to 2017 and moving forward from that timeline forwards, you'll see that a lot of projects that were being developed at that stage, they were singular items. It might have just been the first multi-chain mobile wallet, for example. And the next product, it might have been, the first multi-chain mobile wallet with hot swaps enabled, and just other sorts of little minuscule adaptations to the products. And as the space is starting to mature, what we're starting to see is a lot more larger amalgamations of technology stacks. So for us as an example, you look at the different ways that we kind of come together. We have a complete equity and ESOPs management suite on the Web2 side. We have a complete, Web3 cap table tokenomics and deployment suite on the Web3 side. And the data is all interoperable. So it's no longer, separate databases, separate programs. You don't have, 5 different subscription services. It's all being amalgamated under one sort of technology stack. And I think you'll start to see this happening more and more, where, I even think there's some launch pads and such that are starting to have their own, decentralized exchanges, for example. So it's the natural progression of the space as this technology starts to mature, that, people aren't doing little things anymore. They're starting to have loftier goals, because a lot of the foundational technology, they're not starting from scratch anymore. There's a lot to already build on top of. And, it's exactly the same way that the Web2 space evolved. We started off with, and it wasn't even that long ago, even in the finance sector, that equity was still managed on paper. Like really not that long ago. There's firms out there probably today that still have some paper, structures for managing some equity that they have, some legacy systems. So we're very, very quickly catching up, and I believe it's only going to keep going forward. In terms of trends as well, and I'm sure everybody knows this, AI, RWAs are definitely something that's going to be very hot in the near future. They already are quite hot. They're only going to get hotter because the industries in RWA is so much more than what people realize. And then the AI is constantly evolving, as we can all see, with OpenAI's latest announcement, and it's only going to start getting crazier and crazier on that front too. So those two industries, I don't see any sign of them slowing down. Over to you, Jessie.
I'm really excited about all the developments going on in the AI space because I see a clear intersection where in the crypto, in the blockchain space, we're able to actually use the AI technology to further advance what we're building in blockchain. And also vice versa, as we start building more and more of a community and more data starts aggregating, being aggregated on chain, we're eventually going to be able to feed that into large language models and better the user experience. So some of the examples and ideas that Matchain has been innovating on is we're actually already in the process of using AI within Matchain. So how we're doing that is you can think of these match IDs as a universal marker. We're able to see how users are going from one ecosystem to the next. And we're now using AI, using actually knowledge graphs and graph neural networks to be able to aggregate all of this heterogeneous and multi-source data and better be able to filter and vectorize this data as well. Um, Eventually, as we accumulate enough of this generalized data, we'll be able to feed it to these large language models, and hopefully, these LLMs will be able to give us more feedback on how we can better personalize the user experience, better personalize the IDs, and prevent, any threats. Whether it's, let's say, like your wallet, you're trying to send a transaction to a you know, a shady wallet that has some history of doing shady stuff. Like I want to be able to leverage AI and give a warning to users saying, hey, like this transaction is not the safest. Like, are you sure you want to proceed? So those are just some examples of how we're able to already leverage AI in our blockchain technology. And I'm really excited to see what more there is to come. In terms of advice, I think a lot of developers, they always have the best ideas from coming together and talking to each other, just bouncing ideas off of each other. So I would really recommend more and more projects to go out there, go to these crypto conferences. There are conferences every single month, all over the world. Go in person and see who you end up meeting. You never know. You might end up finding your future co-founder, or you might end up, forming more and more partnerships. But I think the best way to continuing to advance your thoughts and your ideas is through just meeting with people and bouncing ideas off of them. So those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Jessie. And I think it would be fair to ask Ian also.
Well, I think a lot of the things that were highlighted certainly um, align with what I am thinking. I think Corey mentioned RWAs. It's the blockchain environment and capabilities are not simply digital alone. It touches physical and bridges physical and digital so that we have a holistic ecosystem across different environments. AI, certainly, I think, you know, similar to the Web3 space, the big opportunity with AI is it provides now access for people to learn, to understand. Then, following what Jessie said, get active in the community. You want to interact and discover. That's a big part of this. That's how innovation really thrives, by curiosity turning into interaction, turning into action. Um, the only other thing, I don't know if it's a crystal ball, when I speak to a lot of people over the recent years, when they hear the term decentralized, I think the initial gut reaction for people who aren't active in the space, it almost sounds like, oh, decentralized, that sounds like a bad thing. And I think we need to explain to people and educate them that decentralized is important because it means distributed. It gives everybody access and rights to the things they own or they are a part of. And that's a benefit as long as cybersecurity is a top priority. So I think there's a lot ahead. But how about you, Anna? What do you think?
I completely agree that you have to show up to go to community networking and meet real people who are behind all all other projects, because I think that Web3 industry is the most welcoming industry you can ever find in the entire planet. Because if you will go to a traditional economic conference or finance conference, you will never meet these opened arms who can embrace you right away. So sometimes just starting a conversation with someone will create a snowball which will lead you to some kind of knowledge and some kind of curiosity. So my advice will be to unpack this Pandora box and still be curious to go through it, because no one here will give you a proper answer. No one here has this proper answer, to be honest. And all of us here are we're exploring, we're experimenting, and we are just so hungry for knowledges and for people and for new generations. So we just can't stop to think about what's next. So I think that this hunger about what's next, this is your main driving force. And I wish all of us can have this. And yeah, I think that we are slightly going to a logical end. And thank you all for joining us today for our insightful AMA session. It was such a pleasure to hear all these amazing ideas, not just about the partnership between Blubird and Matchain, but about the space in general. And big thank you to our speakers, Corey, Jessie, Blubird account, whoever is behind the scenes, and of course, my amazing co host, Ian. So, if you'd like to stay updated on the latest developments, please follow us on our social media channels and check out our websites. And we encourage you to get involved with Blubird through our Match Hub, follow our social media, and explore the benefits of Match ID with Matchain. And together we are building decentralized future, and we are excited. We are just scratching the surface of what's to come. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you guys so
everyone.
much.
Thank you for having us.
Of
Take care.
course. Take care. Cheers. Bye bye.
Cheers.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.